Hi everyone, it's I, follower of the way, a bond servant of Christ. May peace and grace be upon you. Today, we are going to be taking a little break from theological teachings and look into 10 unusual deaths in the Bible. In no particular order, let us delve in. Coming in at number 1, we have King Egon. He was the king of Moab during the period the Israelites crossed into the land of Canaan after centuries passed when their ancestors initially left the land. God allowed them to be subdued after King Egon gathered the Amalekites and the Ammonites against them due to their constant sinfulness. After 18 years following the constant prayers to God, that he raised up Ehud, a Benjamite, who was left-handed. This was a striking trait. The Israelites sent him to deliver tribute to King Egon, unknown to them that he had secretly made a sword and hid in his right thigh and covered with clothing, of which, if enemy soldiers were to assess him, they would look to his left thigh unconsciously. King Egon was a very fat man. After Ehud presented the tribute, the king sent his people who carried the gift away. Then Ehud said he had a secret message for the king, for your ears only kind of message. The king ordered his court people out of the room. Then Ehud drew near and said, I have a message from God for you. King Egon stood up, and Ehud took out his sword and ran it through his belly to the point that all of the sword, including the hilt, entered, and his excreta came out. Ehud escaped after shutting the doors. The servants felt their king was resting and they didn't open, giving Ehud enough time to escape. At number 2, we have Kura and his friends, Dathan and Abiram. These men stood against Moses and Aaron, telling them that they took too much for themselves, that the whole people were holy, so why do they think that they were better than others? I know some people have experienced this kind of talks from others. This was coming from the same set of people God had delivered out of Egypt with all his miracles. Yet, as Moses went up to the mountain, before he got back, they had started to worship a golden calf. Talk about holy people, right? And the irony was that Kura was from the tribe of Levi, who were normally the priestly tribe. In my opinion, this kind of antagonism breeds from jealousy. Moses felt bad because he knew he had kindly dealt with everyone and has not taken anything unjustly from anyone. Moses came to Kura and knelt before him and told him and his friends that by the next day God would choose who was holy. He told them to carry incense pans and put fire and incense in them and stand in a place around the tabernacle, and who God chose were the holy ones. A point of note is that while Kura was from the tribe of Levi, his friends Dathan and Abiram were from the tribe of Reuben. Moses later sent for these men to come to him. He was probably trying to talk these two friends out of joining their friend Kura, but they refused to come. Ironically, the congregation sided with these 3 friends, but Moses prayed to God not to punish all for the sins of the few. God told Moses to tell the people to move away from the 3 friends, and an earthquake happened just around the 3 friends and their families, and they fell into the earth, and the earth closed its mouth. Coming in at number 3, we have Abimelech. This is not the Abimelech Abraham met, nor the one Isaac encountered. From the previous context, It might be a name given to the Philistine kings. This Abimelech was Gideon's son. After Gideon became a national hero, he began to have many wives and concubines. One of his concubines gave birth to a son, and she called him Abimelech. She might have been a lineage from the Philistine people, because this is not a name Israelites bore. When he was older, he went back to his mother's town and gathered a following. The people gave him some money, which he used to hire sellsword, and he went back to his father's house and killed 70 of his stepbrothers, but he didn't kill Jotham, who was the youngest, because he hid himself. The people crowned him their king and leader. After 3 years of his reign, there were revolts against him. How can the son of Gideon's slave rule over us? Abimelech crushed the rebellion. He was very ruthless. There was a tower in one of the cities he was to capture. The people fled into it when he attacked. Abimelech and his soldiers wanted to burn it down with the people who ran into it inside. They ran close to the door to throw the fire in, but a woman threw down a milestone and it crushed his head. In his dying breath, he told his armor-bearer to kill him, so that the people wouldn't say a woman killed Abimelech. Talk about a proud man, right? Unfortunately, unlike Abimelech, who was too proud to give a woman credit, the next person was actually killed by a woman. At number 4, we have Sisera. He was the commander of King Jabin of Canaan's army, and at that period, the Israelites were oppressed by King Jabin for 20 years. Deborah, the prophetess, and Barak gathered up their forces against Sisera. They were greatly outnumbered, but against all odds, Sisera was defeated, and he fled and got to the tent of Jael. She was a wife of Ahab the Kenite. There was peace between King Jabin and the house of Ahab. Sisera might have had a sigh of relief that he was in the camp of an ally. She covered him up with a rug and gave him milk to drink instead of the water he asked for. When he was deeply asleep, she hammered a tent peg into his temple and killed him. The next at number 5 is King Ahab. The list won't be complete without King Ahab. Years prior, following the internal conflict between Solomon's son, King Rehoboam, and Jeroboam, who was Solomon's former official, which caused the kingdom to split into Kingdom of Judah with 2 tribes loyal to them, and Kingdom of Israel with 10 tribes loyal to them, and Jeroboam was the latest first king. King Ahab was a later king in the 10 tribes, and man, he was wicked. He did unimaginable things to God's prophets and people. In the course of time, the prophets that surrounded him were all liars. But Prophet Micaiah came to prophesy to him that he would fall in battle for all the evil he had done. King Ahab, in his usual manner, ordered the prophet to be thrown into prison. Because of the prophecy, King Ahab told his counterpart, King Jehoshaphat of Judah, that for this battle he would disguise himself, but he could wear his own king clothing. In the battle, the enemy captains were given an order by their king to fight only King Ahab. They initially thought that King Jehoshaphat was King Ahab, so they pursued him with their chariots. However, An archer shot an arrow at random, and it went to hit King Ahab. He bled out in the middle of his chariot and died in the evening. The next person was the wife of the wicked King Ahab. She was more wicked than her husband. We have Queen Jezebel. She was more sinister and deadlier than the king, to the extent that her husband inquired of her for deadly solution to his problems, and she always delivered with precision and a touch of wickedness. She was also a known harlot. In fact, you all know the fearless prophet Elijah. This man was scared of her. Let us think about that for a moment. After King Ahab died, his son was made king. Like father, like son, he did evil too. Prophet Elisha anointed a commander of King Ahab's army called Jehu as king, who God would use to destroy the house of Ahab. Jehu killed Ahab's son, who was king, and the rest of his brothers. When Jehu entered the city, Jezebel heard. She painted her eyes and decorated her hair and sat by the window. When Jehu got to the palace, he raised his head and saw her sitting by the window, and he shouted,
"Who is on my side?"
And 2 to 3 eunuchs looked at him from the window. He ordered them to throw her down, and they threw her down, and she caused a splatter down below, and Jehu ran her body over with his horses. Jehu entered the palace to eat and drink. He ordered the servants to go and bury her, since she was a daughter of a king. But when the servants got outside, they only saw her skull, feet, and hands. Dogs had eaten what was left of her, fulfilling the word of Prophet Elijah many years past, that when Queen Jezebel dies, no one would recognize her body. At number 7, we have King Herod. He was the grandson of Herod the Great, who was the king present when Jesus was born. He was also known as Agrippa. He persecuted the early church. He sent Peter to prison and executed James, son of Zebedee. He was eaten by worms following a speech he gave to the people. Coming in at number 8 is Jehoram. He was the firstborn of King Jehoshaphat. Before Jehoshaphat died, he divided cities between his sons. He gave 6 of them fortified cities in the kingdom, but gave the kingdom to Jehoram, who was worse than them in character just because he was the firstborn. After Jehoshaphat died, King Jehoram took control and executed all his brothers. You remember, I earlier spoke about King Ahab. Well, guess what? King Jehoram married King Ahab's daughter, so what would you expect? Wickedness in the highest order. In the course of years, there were revolts from other kingdoms under their rule, and his reign wasn't peaceful. He created altars to other gods for the people to worship. In time, his judgment from God was due for all his atrocities. Enemies invaded his kingdom and took away all his possessions, wives and sons, except the youngest who was left. He was struck with an incurable bowel disease until his bowels fell out, and he died at 40 years of age. No one cried for him. The next one was in a way tragic. Let us see at number 9, Usza. Years after David was king, he finally ordered the ark to be brought back to the capital from Gibeah. This was where the previous king, King Saul, left it. It was placed on a cart and carried by the chosen people authorized to carry it. When the cart got to a threshing floor, it was shaking, probably threatening to fall. So Usza, probably a nice guy, quickly ran to hold and support it. Immediately, it dropped dead. God had earlier warned that only the sons of Kohath were authorized to carry the things of the tabernacle because they were holy things. The name coming at number 10 is Eli. Eli was a priest at Shiloh in the tabernacle. It was under him the prophet Samuel was groomed. He was a good father figure to Samuel, but his two sons were very corrupt. The Philistines gathered to fight the Israelites. Eli's two sons were ordered by their soldiers to bring the Ark of Covenant to the battlefield. News later got back to Shiloh and to Eli that his two sons were killed in battle. Eli asked about the Ark of God, and as soon as the man told him that it was captured, Eli fell backward from his chair and broke his neck. He was 98 years old. So, these are the 10 unusual deaths in the Bible. Until next time, I remain your host, follower of the way. Remain blessed.
Hello, brothers and sisters. I must say that I'm glad to have you here. It will mean a lot to us if you subscribe, like, and share. I pray we all keep bonding in love for humanity and for our loving Father in heaven.